morning, world. I'm your host, Steve Rao, the host of Pod TV's World Edition, soon to be a part of the Roku network. I am here today to wish each and every one of you, from our family at Pod TV to yours, a happy new year as we end a turbulent 2021. If there was a word I could use to describe this year, it would be disruption or maybe darkness. As today in the United States, we have 822,000 dead and 5.5 million in the world dead from the COVID pandemic. The Omicron variant rages rampantly as another hydra, infecting and putting those in hospitals around the world. We've seen disruption in democracy in our own country, polarization and division, the likes we've never seen before. And we're seeing this across the world. But what word can we turn to as we begin a new year? I think that word is resilience. Resilience is often defined of how you bounce back, but often it can be used as a word to talk about how we bounce forward. And we are bouncing forward. On this show, on Pod TV's World Edition, we've been talking about innovation, sustainability, other good practices that are going on in the United States and around the world that we can share with each other as we get through this pandemic together. The world will never be the same. That has been made abundantly clear to us. But we have a choice in how we bounce back and how we bounce forward. And the way is through the connections we have with each other. You know, I'm wearing my Star Wars shirt as I close my monologue. And my message is that we're all drawn to the Disney streaming services of Star Wars, this whole idea of the Force. But I've often reminded everyone that what keeps me going in the long hours of a pandemic, as an elected official as well as a media personality, is this fact that this light that exists within each and every one of us. The Jedi in Star Wars call it the Force, but we've had many Jedi that live among us right now. The healthcare workers, the first responders, the soldiers, the military. And we just lost one, Desmond Tutu, a man who dedicated 6 decades of his life to fight against the apartheid government of South Africa. He joins the likes of leaders like Gandhi, Dr. King, Mother Teresa, other leaders that we must do more than just remember them, that they existed, or remember how they died. We must remember how they lived. That's my assignment to everyone on World Edition as we begin this show. How will we live our lives today? How will we treat each other moving forward? I'll close with a story that I think exemplifies this notion of our connectedness with each other. And I'm sorry I'm going a little bit over my time. But if you're listening to this show across the world, I know Nick Pavdiva often tells me, well, what do they know about Morrisville, Steve, in Lithuania? Well, in North Carolina, where I lead a town of Morrisville, 55% of our population is from the nation of India and South Asia. And in the last year, I've come to realize, as the son of immigrants, I often look at immigration, we often look at immigration as leaving what you've loved and known to chase the American dream or chase a dream of your own, whether it's Sasha Starr leaving from Russia to go to Canada or my parents coming to the United States of America to raise their family in West Virginia. But we often forget the distance this pandemic has had with immigrants and their families. Just 2 days ago, I got a call from a man crying in Morrisville, one of my constituents, a longtime friend. His mother had quit eating and she was in India. She was in the state of Kerala. He was weeping because he said he did not know how much time his mother had left and his passport had expired. I took a half day off of work and was working around the clock, and it finally worked. The congressional offices and embassies were able to get him an appointment. He got his passport renewed. He was on an airplane. And last night, he said he was able to talk with his mother and spend that quality time. That story brought tears to my eyes, but I think it goes to show that we are not alone in our grief and that there's millions around the world who have experienced the same kind of pain, the same kind of loss. But it's the light of our love that will get us through the darkness, not the light of a lamp or the light of a fire, but the light of hope that burns brightly within each of us. And on that note, I say we honor Desmond Tutu today as one of the new moral Jedi in the history of humanity. And I ask that each and every week do your best as we begin the new year to share this light of hope with the world. Do something nice for someone who needs it. And let those know who've lost a loved one that they're not alone in their grief. Thank you for bearing with me as my closing monologue for the New Year's 2021, a year of turbulence. We look forward to seeing you next year. Now we're beginning our show. With me today, we have Mark Lee, Nick Paladiva, and others who might be joining. And guys, I made that monologue up literally from the heart. There wasn't a prepared monologue, but it came out pretty good.
Yeah, I thought that was a good one. I just added a new
bad. You ad-libbed that?
Immigration.
I ad-libbed it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he talked about immigration.
Oh, wait, we're going to talk about immigration? Is that the...
Yeah, that's part of what he talked about was immigation. So I added immigration on there.
No,
and
the
everything.
point
Okay,
I'm trying to make,
I have immigration.
well, real quickly, before we get into, we're going to sort of do a recap of the year. I mean, a really high level, kind of the year of turbulence. But let me tell you real quickly. I'm going to go through some highlight events and sort of get from your opinion about the things that we need to be talking about as we reminisce about the year. Not in addition to the ones that we've lost, but the ones, the changes in the world dealing with the pandemic. But the reason I went with that story was that it was really emotional for me. I almost got emotional today talking about it. But to see a son, not be able to say bye to his mother because of this pandemic, and that not even being able to travel, and the stress of could we get him on a plane if he got there, which he had already passed away. She kept on. She started eating knowing that her son was coming and got a little bit better. But that just made me feel so good. But it made me think of many, many people around the world in the same boat. The uncertainty, the fear, the disruption, right? And we've seen so much disruption. So, I'm going to go real quickly and I want to get your opinions as we close out this year. A year ago, Joe Biden was sworn in as a president. Kamala Harris is the first female vice president. Weeks later, we had insurrection on the Capitol. We've had COVID pandemic continuing with variants. We've got an economy that's getting better, but we've got, democracy disrupting all over the world. We've got failed pullout in Afghanistan, climate change, raging storms, tornadoes. What is it you've learned from this year that you think concerns you moving forward? What do we need to, this is sort of a free for all. I just want to get your thoughts. Racism, right? Obviously.
Things haven't changed very much, Steve. As a matter of fact, I was looking at COVID-19 versus tuberculosis because there was some person who was complaining about TB and how tuberculosis killed last year 1.5 million people. And the thing is, it's again, and they have a vaccine against it, but a lot of people didn't take the vaccine, or it was actually a lot of people in sub-Saharan Africa and also in Asia and India that got TB. So on an annual basis, it kills 1.5 million. Now, COVID became more of a storyline because COVID killed worldwide about 5 million people. So it's had a pretty big impact on the world right now. And I think it's going to continue to have an impact. And I think that's the big demographic change that we saw this year is it's the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's still going to be with us, I think, well into 2022. On the network, we are going to have Dennis Stearns, who manages over $1 billion, $1.5 billion, doing his economic forecast for 2022 in January,
Hmm.
the economy actually held up much better than I thought relating to this. And part of it was the Trump and Biden administrations
Mhm.
actually doing a good job in keeping the economy together. This is where you have to give credit to, frankly, both of them in terms of doing that. Then, if you want to not give credit to both of them, but also as the fault of the American people, is how the pandemic was handled afterwards. In other words, a whole group of people refusing to take the vaccine, which shocked me. Actually, I had no idea that. And of course, I lived through the era where there was smallpox, tuberculosis, malaria. There was measles, mumps, chicken pox. In other words, when you're a kid, you took vaccines because there was a lot of these childhood diseases and deaths. Your choice was die or take the vaccine, so people took it. This whole resistance, I couldn't even calculate. It was not in my calculus to say that people were going to say, "Well, I'm not going to take it," because something bad's going to happen or there's a conspiracy out there. So I think that was the big shocker, which means in 2022, I think we're going to see more. In other words, you're going to see more people, unless people die because we have better treatments, more people get sick because they didn't take the vaccine. I don't know what your thoughts are, Mark, but my thoughts are the more things change, the more things remain the same.
Well, that's true. The more they change, the more they remain the same, to borrow that old phrase and everything. But
Mhm.
definitely that is very much the case. We have seen a lot of incidences of, like Steve was talking about, people, because of the pandemic, having those very sad moments. I actually had one of those this past weekend and everything, because as I think I told y'all, the first day of Kwanzaa was immediately after Christmas. And of course, there was like a memorial garden there. And of course, several of the people I knew, and some of them had been sick for a while on various other kinds of things other than the coronavirus. Definitely, there was a lot of historical people like Baba Chuck Davis, Phil Freelon, and others, and even Michelle Gonzalez Green, who was actually relatively young. I think she was in her maybe late 40s or early 50s or something like that. And she'd been fighting an illness for a long time, and actually had been told that she did not have much longer to live. But with this pandemic, you sometimes lose touch with your friends and things of that nature, because you're not hearing from them as much. Of course, everybody's trying to survive in their own family situations, their own bubbles, their own whatever. And I had not realized that she had passed a few months back, even though she was definitely a leader in the community and all of that. And it's my understanding that sometime in 2022, they will be doing some sort of memorial service for this great leader, because, like I said, there was a small gathering of family and friends immediately, but there was not a lot of time for people to actually honor her the way that she probably should have been honored. And therefore, they will do that later on in 2022. And a lot of times we're also thinking about the impact that it's still having on our sports world. I think that there's been another bowl game that was canceled and all of that.
Yeah.
And of course, there's been several of those because of, in some cases, maybe one team having people that have the virus. In some cases, it might be both teams. I'm not sure all of how that goes down and everything, but it's definitely impacting our college season. And we do know that around Christmas and New Year's, this is a very big time for college sports and all of that.
Yes, we have Sasha Starr that just joined us. Sasha, welcome to the
Oh, no,
show.
yeah.
Sasha, what are the things as we look at this year that really jump out at you in both in Canada and around the world, and what you've been observing in the U.S.?
Okay, it is like Ronald Reagan asked, are you better off this year or the last year?
Yeah,
4 years ago.
yeah.
So, are we better off today than at the beginning of the year? Um, okay, our stock investments, I think, did quite well in the last year, so that's positive, and at least it's very easy to measure your performance when you look at your statement. It takes probably 2 seconds to figure out that. That's not too complicated. Overall year was. For me personally, a very big setback was injury that my wife had. It was an accident. However, that very seriously adjusted everything what we are doing, but hopefully time will heal that. And
Mhm.
on international
However,
scene, it's very interesting situation now with Biden and Putin exchange of calls and so on. It's quite interesting story by itself. I don't think that there will be any breakthroughs in upcoming negotiations.
They
But
they can settle it with a chess game, but I would think that Putin would be heavily favored
you
over Biden.
know, I'm afraid so. Actually,
I'm afraid so.
he would beat him in almost any game because
Yeah.
except maybe push-ups, but you don't discount Putin on push-ups as well.
That's what I'm saying.
well,
I'm not sure if
yes.
there's
And speaking of
anything
Putin,
that Putin
him and
can't beat
Biden just had
Biden
a
on.
50-minute call, the president
Yeah.
and Putin, about not imposing
R-
sanctions on Russia. So they're
Right.
still trying to talk. Um,
Still try-
Putin and Biden. Yeah.
yeah, they're still trying to have that
Yeah.
conversation and everything.
I mean,
And
Understood.
they really need to sit down and have a serious conversation about U.S. and Russian relationships and try to clear this
I heard
thing
very
up.
interesting
You know.
analysis of what's happening right now. You
Yeah.
see, Putin basically Putin in his mind he's trying to recreate sort of a Yalta 1945 and have it Yalta 2022 or so.
Mhm.
hmm,
But a lot of things changed since 1945. The Russian army, at least land army, was so formidable that there was a danger that they can just overrun all Europe, including the
Yeah.
France and England, just
Sure.
whatever is there. So whatever negotiations were there between Roosevelt and Stalin and Churchill, basically it was they were trying to restrain Russia from going farther and farther and farther ahead, or at least to avoid confrontation. Now today, Russia even nearly doesn't represent the might of Russia in 1945 or Soviet Union at the
Yes.
time. So Putin doesn't have really a lot of trumps to play. He's trying to do his best. He's like an excellent poker player with a poor card. Let's say, imagine you play poker and your two cards are two of spade and six of six of.
Six of diamonds.
it's a
Oh,
diamond, something
great.
like that.
So many other people would throw away these cards and wait.
Yeah, you would throw those cards away.
But this
Dude.
guy,
It's called
he will,
poll
he
saving.
will, he will raise and he will
Yeah.
do so.
Well, I mean,
Well, apparently he's
when I look,
apparently he's a master of the bluff,
yeah,
and
when I
that is
look at
what you got to do.
Russia, they only have two major cities. They have Moscow, they have St. Petersburg.
That's right.
Stalingrad was reduced to ruin, and Vladivostok is not really that big. And then the rest of it's like empty nothing, So it's just not huge. I think their population's dwindling. It's 145 million, and they
Wow.
don't have a big birth rate. So when you look at it overall, they're kind of a big landmass, small population country. But the thing is, they do have a fairly well educated sector in terms of engineers and things
Right.
of that nature. And they have nice artwork up in St. Petersburg. In other words, they have beautiful
Oh
cities.
yeah, great,
So,
great
so,
artwork up there.
but I'll tell you, man, they are so tough. Like we beam into Lithuania, Sasha. No problem. I mean, I get reports from Lithuania almost every day right now. And Fox News is taking the Gamer's Den, by the way. That's
Yeah.
running on Fox News. Just want to tell Mark that. I was kind of impressed. But now I go to Russia. I get like stonewalled. Russia and China are like, big stone walls
Yeah,
trying to break
they're
through.
not trying to have us.
Yeah,
break
they're
through
not.
them.
These guys aren't
Um,
friendly at all over there,
to,
and I don't know what to do about it. I mean, it's like
Yeah,
Nick, here is
Chinese are tough. By the way, it's not just Russia. China is tough.
I'm not I'm not so knowledgeable about China, but in Russia, the situation is very simple. If
Yeah.
you present this idea to somebody in Russia, it doesn't matter on what level, the question number one, what's in it for me
Right.
personally? Okay.
Yeah.
Once we establish certain things that, okay, here is what's in it for you, then you can go to next level.
Right.
And the project is just, it's still alive. It's
Yeah.
still uncertain what's going to happen, but it's alive. Now, when you don't offer anything to guy, what's in it for me, and you
Right.
say,
You're tough.
Zira, Big fat
Yeah.
zero.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
what's in it for you. That's the end of story.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
Sasha
and
and Nick, I
that's-
think I just came up with a solution:
Mm.
NFTs and unlockables. So we got
No,
rid
no,
of NFTs and unlockables
okay,
to the
okay.
Russians, and then they might go for it.
You know what we need to do is we need to get vodka, lots of it. Send it over there, baby. They
Oh,
listen
yes.
to vodka.
And
Yeah,
I did the
So-
old real quickly vodka test 2 nights ago. Belvedere, smoother than anything. Felt great in the morning.
Great work.
Yesterday, I don't know what I did. I went with a little Smirnoff. Woke up with like I had a train in my head. I've got a headache today, so I'll go with Belvedere.
We're going with Belvedere.
The best Russian vodka for some time is definitely Beluga.
How do you spell it?
Beluga.
I can't find it
B-E-
anywhere. Beluga. Okay.
Yeah, it's difficult to
Beluga.
find, but this is Beluga. Beluga, just like I pronounce. Smirnov is a poor man's Beluga.
That's what I thought. Smirnoff is poor man's vodka.
Hey,
Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's why I got a headache.
Okay, see, I believe in bribes get people far.
Yeah, bribes will definitely work, but that
The
actually
thing
raises
is,
a very
the
interesting
Beluga
guys,
vodka to the right
real
people.
quick-
No, we're going to get the
Yeah.
Beluga to the right people, but that
Real
actually
quickly,
raises an
and speaking of Beluga, a quick break from vodka. The mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, the mayor-elect, is getting sworn in tonight at midnight.
Oh, wow.
After the
Really? After the ball drops.
After the ball drops.
He'll be taking
Well,
so he canceled all of his
Is
inaugural.
he Russian? Is he Russian? Can we give him vodka?
Well, maybe
You know, the
Eric
Ru-
would
the
have-
No, he's not Russian.
Dude, the Russians have invaded New York. I don't know if you know that. They're
No,
all
they're
they
definitely
own
over there and
Brooklyn.
everything.
Especially
They're
some
definitely over there.
areas of New York.
Yeah,
like
some areas
Brighton
of New York.
Beach, for example.
Yeah.
Do you know
So
that,
anyway-
by the way, that since Russians occupied Brighton Beach and control it, there is very little crime in Brighton.
Yeah,
Beach.
well, I would say, the crime is a
Of
control
course, all
situation.
Italian gangs, they all run out
Yeah.
of Brighton Beach. They don't want to get killed. So right now, it's very, very peaceful, very nice
Hey,
place.
but Sasha, that's because these Russians are serious, man. I've
No,
been
they're
down in the
very
gulag.
serious, and they just want to have that whole.
These people don't play around. They don't want to hear
No, they
any
don't
Second
play.
Amendment rights or First
Nah,
Amendment rights.
skip
or
it.
Fifth
Skip
Amendment
rights.
rights. Skip all that stuff.
Skip rights. Hey, but Nick,
They go right to the bottom line, baby. Boom, boom.
But Nick, that
Very
actually raises an interesting question. That's something that I've heard from several people around the world and everything. And I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts about this. Everybody that I talk to, and I've actually had this conversation with Shaquille when he's been here as well. It seems that we in America get stuck with the poor man's drinks as it being like a great drink. Because like I said, you just said that Smirnoff is the poor man's Beluga and everything. I've heard people say that Foster's is the poor man's whatever their
Australian
better
beer,
beer is and
Australian.
Now, there's a
everything.
marketing real quickly. This is a marketing story about Smirnoff vodka, which I find to be amazing. So, Smirnoff became very popular in the United States during the World War II years and after World War II. And here's why: it was the only alcohol you could drink where you couldn't smell it on the breath. So people would drink it when they would go party, and then when they would come home to see the wives, they wouldn't have the alcohol on the breath. So the marketing became, it takes your breath away.
Oh, Lord.
And it's sold like hotcakes because all these men would get Smirnoff. And that's how, and now they've got the Smirnoff drinks and everything.
Yep.
But I'm not drinking Smirnoff again. I'm going to use it for like my penne alla vodka sauce that my family makes, because I tell you, it gave me the worst headache I've had in months.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't need you having headaches out here on the news and
Speaking
everything.
of drink, we have time for a thing that we're doing tonight.
Wow.
John, you need the StreamYard link?
Yeah, I think it's on StreamYard 1.
It is on StreamYard, and that
send
link can be
links
sent.
out.
Yeah, send those
You
links
know.
out so that folks can join the party.
What
Yeah.
time do we
And
join? What
everything.
time do we join? Because
That's a good question.
I
What
think
time?
it's at 8 o'clock. When I looked at the StreamYard,
Right.
Wow.
I
It's
want
gonna
to
be a
pop
little
it was
in
at
and
8
say
o'clock.
I want to pop in.
I'm
and say
gonna send the
hi,
link.
'cause
I'm gonna send the link afterwards to lots of
Okay.
people so that you can
Yeah,
join
when I looked, it was
anytime and
at 8,
leave
so it'll probably
anytime.
be like
Because
8
it's
to
gonna go
midnight.
for like, I think it'll go like for 4 hours or
4
I
something.
may
hours, 8
not
to
be able to.
midnight. That's what
I
I'm
may not be
thinking.
able to drink tonight. I'm gonna have to detox, clean out
Yeah.
this vodka.
Yeah, you
Well,
gotta talk to people.
I'll be watching more than
I was supposed to drink
participating.
Black Label with my dad tonight. Either that or Macallan. I don't know.
Only because I refuse to watch that guy Anderson Cooper. I'll watch.
Yeah, you don't want to watch
I
Anderson.
don't watch. Well, I don't watch because CNN doesn't take any of our content.
I know
Fox
that
takes it.
horrible
Al
CNN.
Jazeera takes it.
So
Hey,
real quick,
Fox
Nick,
Al
hey,
Jazeera.
Nick, does anybody in Mexico take our content? Because I just recently
Africa?
learned that, we're always complaining about the border
We have
issues
habla
on
español.
the front part of the border, which is going into America and North America, that is, and the United States. But the backside is also having an issue because apparently near the Guatemalan border, they've been having some whole issues, and some of the migrants have been waiting for months in what some people are describing as a prison. And that's where they've been keeping their folks down there. And they have recently disbanded the camp in Tapachula, where about 3,000 migrants were granted permission by Mexico's National Migration Institute to process their travel documents. Steve, you're going to love this one. And so is Nick. This is the one that really got me and everything, because I love how technology is impacting our nation, our country, and our world. I want you to hear this story and the way that it ends and everything. Migrants, mostly from Central America and the Caribbean, left the camp after INM officials gave them a QR code, registering them to complete their registration process or regularization process. So they're doing this through a QR code. Gotta love modern technology.
Yeah, it is modern technology. Yeah,
You gotta love it.
Yeah,
Hey,
the thing.
Nick, you asked me earlier who celebrates first, or I
and
asked
that's
you.
the theme. Yeah, exactly. Well, and real quickly, the theme of technology, right? Which I think we don't talk enough about. But one good thing about the pandemic, not really anything good, but is how we're using digital technologies and technologies more to actually work and be productive and communicate, and how these technologies like Zoom or Microsoft Teams are being used so much more. And also the research and development in terms of vaccines and mRNA technology, these could be used now to cure other diseases like cancer and things like that. So I think we've seen an acceleration of technological and scientific innovation, which will help us moving forward dealing with these future pandemics. And hopefully we've learned something. But I really think that the United States and other countries need to really come up with more of specific task forces and things in case another pandemic hit. Yesterday we talked about the avian flu, bird flu. I think it's I can't remember what part of the world. It might have been Israel, right? So what if something like that were to happen and all of a sudden there's another pandemic? How are we going to have a healthcare system that's ready? How are we going to be prepared? And and I think
it comes back to what Nick was talking about earlier. Those things that happen, they have a habit of repeating themselves and all of that. I can tell you that if you think you had a headache based on some of the things that you did in terms of early celebrations and everything, I was having a technological headache earlier today, and it's still not solved because, like I said, there's a lot of internet celebrations, a lot of other things that are going on, and some of them are including and being part of things like the metaverse and Discord and a bunch of other things. And, I've got a good computer, but it's not a super duper computer. And it has been a headache this morning trying to make all these different parts work together because they don't like to work together, because I was trying to help those fine folks in England put together their event and everything. So it will still go on and everything, but it has not been a technological wonder, and it's given a lot of headaches and all of that. So we'll see how it goes in the metaverse, because they try to tie the metaverse to Discord to some other platforms that are out there. I forget all the
Speaking of movies, I want to go see. Well, I saw Spider-Man. I want to go see The Matrix, but I might just get with Omicron and everything. I might go ahead and get it on HBO Max.
It got absolutely horrible reviews by people I know.
Yeah, I'm thinking so will Avatar, and Avatar came out like 12 years ago and is now coming back out in 2022. So I'm thinking that it's not going to get great reviews.
Is it a sequel? Is it a sequel? Avatar sequel?
It's an Avatar sequel.
Here's something that has good reviews. It's called global warming. Now I keep hearing about this, but hear about these icebergs are going to break off and flood
Right.
Also,
the
West Side
world.
Story didn't get very good reviews either. So I think a
Yeah,
lot of these I'm
that's
just
true.
gonna.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. You can't look at the
Batman's coming
credits.
out.
What do they know?
The
What do they
Batman's
know?
coming out in March,
Yeah.
and for those of you that like Disney streaming, Obi-Wan Kenobi is coming out in 2 weeks, which is really fascinating. If you're a Star Wars geek like I am, it's about him on Tatooine watching over Luke Skywalker, knowing that Darth Vader is alive and they may be meeting again, which is interesting. Who Anakin, who became Darth Vader, and then Boba Fett. So you got all these things. And we just finished Hawkeye. The Avengers. So
Has anybody seen a movie on Netflix? Don't Look Up.
Yeah, I saw
oh,
it.
I heard it's
You know,
good.
it was actually pretty good. Leonardo DiCaprio and Helen Mirren were in it. I mean,
Yeah, I heard it's good. My
it
But
brother,
hasn't that been getting
was-
panned as well?
well, what happened was, I mean, this is reading between the lines because these movie people never tell you what really happened. I believe what happened, Sasha, is it was scheduled for the big screen, but then they realized they weren't going to get an audience. So what they did is that Netflix came or Amazon gave them a bunch of money. They dumped it on Amazon or Netflix, and that was kind of it. But
also, Nick, based on the caliber of artists involved, Leonardo DiCaprio,
expensive.
Meryl Streep, and so on,
Yeah,
you
Meryl
would
Streep.
say it's
Yeah,
like
it
a
was.
blockbuster.
Right.
But the movie, I love the scene when they're coming to the president of the United States to tell about this horrible giant
Right, and they
comet,
ignored him.
which will destroy everything in 6.5 months.
Yeah, come back at 6
And the
tomorrow.
president say, "Come on, what are you talking about? I have a midterm election that
Exactly. I thought that part was really well done, and how the media kind of ignored them. They didn't really care. It wasn't on their sheets. So because it wasn't on their sheets and what they're talking about today, forget it. We're not interested. It was almost a parody with the COVID-19. In other words, you have this huge disaster that's about, and you're completely ignored by everybody. So I thought, but the thing is that could actually happen though, because there are. It happens once every 110 million years. Some asteroid could actually be targeting the world, and you're kind of screwed.
And the end is fantastic, right?
Oh, the end is fantastic.
You don't remember last year?
It was definitely worth saying. Yeah. I feel sorry for the developers because you can see all the money that they spent. Sasha, that they could have lost their tail on that one.
Oh, totally.
But
they did.
That's the reason we have Media Monday, that we can discuss the media. No one discusses the economics behind this stuff. It's just really weird. Speaking of which, we have this show coming up, The Worst President Ever. Have you been banned on LinkedIn yet, Mark?
I'm going to check really quickly and everything. Okay. By the way, while I'm looking that up and everything, does anybody have any idea where Carabetta is, or Carabata, and Cara Tamata? Because apparently they, along with New Zealand, ring in the new year first. So they're going to do it very shortly, and then they're going to be followed by the Pacific island of Tonga and Samoa.
I know where Tonga is. Yeah, they're probably in what they call Micronesia. That would be my best guess in the South Pacific, without bringing in my favorite cheat sheet, globe, and
Why are you looking up that cheat
name
sheet?
of this crazy thing? See, the internet's much faster. See, this stuff is old technology, and you have to have good eyes to go look around and find it. You go to the internet, you can find almost anything.
No. And I will do that later. But I love this way that they describe the people that will celebrate last, because we're going to have some celebrations last, and that includes Baker and the Howland Islands. They're going to come in at 12 p.m. GMT, like British time and everything. But they said it won't be much of a celebration because those islands are uninhabited. So, like I said, I guess the animals will be celebrating. And then next to that will be the American Samoa at 11 a.m.
There's a trivia question out there. Okay, what state in the United States is the most eastern state, and what state is the most western state? It's an interesting trivia question. What's the most eastern state? Does anyone have a clue?
Most
the state. Okay. Eastern. So I'm thinking, I'm doing like the one that's off to the edge there and everything. Would it be Maine? Maine, right? And then what would be the most western state?
Well, would that be Alaska, I would guess.
Okay, but here's the answer. The most eastern state and western state is Alaska, because one of the islands is east and west. It's a trick trivia question. Go look it up.
Interesting.
I did not.
So
One of the
real
Aleutian
quickly-
Islands is
And
east
this
of-
is exactly why Russia wants to get back Alaska.
Yeah, well, we bought that fair and square from Alaska. By the way, if you ever go to Alaska, they had there was a former capital. I mean, they actually still have Russians there.
Vodka, yeah.
Yeah.
And Sarah
they're up
Palin
and
said
down
she
there.
could see Alaska in her backyard. Remember that?
Yeah, that
I'm
gave
sorry,
her
she
inter-
said Russia in her backyard.
that,
Um,
Of course you could.
she was she was ready to be vice president of the United States.
that gave her international experience because she lived in Alaska and could see
And to
Russia.
answer your question, yes, it looks like it's still going on and everything. I'm still getting results from the one that we talked about. So now I've got to
Oh,
find
really?
the other one and everything. So I'm still getting comments from the one that featured Andrew Jackson and some of the other people. And I've got to get to
So-
the one that's got Woodrow.
We got real quickly.
Oh, it's called Sitka. If you ever go to Sitka, Alaska, they still have Russian cathedrals there and Russian churches
Yes.
there. And I went there just to go see it, and they still have Russians hanging out. I mean, it's like, they never left that place. It was kind of interesting. So they still had Alaska at one time, then we bought it from them.
So
Wow.
real quickly, a quick topic switch. But one thing I realized with COVID, which is something I put in my last newsletter, is that 59% of the cases of COVID or the deaths from COVID are those 65 and older.
Oh, great.
So that's a pretty big number of 822,000, almost 580,000 or almost 600,000 are 65 and older, and that number is a little bit lower when about 200 and some thousand when you look at 85 and older. So definitely that's an area where, and I think the other thing we haven't talked about, one of we can help our expert is, what are the other factors that cause people to die from COVID? So a lot of these folks may have unreported conditions or
You have an underlying. You have an see, that's my demographic group you're reporting, Steve. Why do you think I'm outraged about how these morons are treating it? Because they can infect moi. It affects me and my ability to breathe. So that hits my demographic group. I have an underlying condition,
But
and I'm in that
flip
age
side
group.
of Nick, the flip side of that, and I've told you this before, is that there are folks that would use that evidence of their own experience. And I know sometimes you say that, and other people say we shouldn't do that, but there are a number of folks that have had experiences that have led them to believe one way or the other based on their personal evidence.
Mark, I don't care what their evidence is, and frankly, I don't care what the delusions are. Like I said, what I care about is moi, and what they do is they affect moi, and so it bothers me that they're not.
Nick, but I think the healthiest statistic must be for people 95 and older, because they are staying home, they're not going anywhere.
Well, look,
they cannot get infected.
Colin Powell died of COVID-19. I mean,
but he had myeloma. He had a lot of other medical.
That's what I'm saying.
I think we need to focus our conversation on health. I don't know how many.
Forget it,
Sasha. I don't know when if you look at the United States, we have a very obese population. People eating way too much food. Cardiovascular.
See, he wouldn't know that in Canada. See, if you're in Canada, they don't eat all the junk food and stuff. But you're in the southern part of the United States, you do have an obesity problem, and it's absolutely huge.
Yeah,
because of all that junk food.
I've cut a lot of
you're
fried
in
food
you're in good
out
shape, Steve, because you go play tennis and stuff like that.
But I cut a lot of fried food out, and
that's
the thing
true.
is, because of COVID, I used to go to steakhouses a lot for once or twice a month, for corporate dinners, but not as many visits to the steakhouse. Not going to get the fried chicken nuggets and chicken strips, and you cut that fried food and heavy meats away. And all of a sudden, I've dropped 14 pounds. I mean,
this will help you out. Some Beluga vodka. And by the way, in Russia, they have the mortality rate is really, the life expectancy is really low there, but then the alcoholism is really high. So the thing is, so in Russia, I think the average age, the life expectancy is like 65. It's like almost 10 years younger. Than,
a few years ago, it was 58 for men.
58. Yeah, I mean,
my God.
Yeah, in Russia they don't live that long, but then they drink and they smoke like crazy.
What is a much healthier?
What is a famous Russian food, Sasha?
Russian food, I would say probably borscht is like a soup.
Here it is. That's their favorite food. I mean, the Russian
vodka. Food. Yeah, vodka is far the best.
They like vodka, ballet, and chess. Not necessarily in that order.
Yeah, so anyway,
Not so fast, Nick, by the way.
Hmm?
Not so
Really?
fast.
What
Because
are
I
the
was
Russians
looking up
like?
things, and there is an obesity problem in Canada as well. Not with
There
some,
is?
but yes, there is problems in
Oh, Lord.
Canada as well. As a matter of fact, they're saying that they're going to have a significant part of their population that will be obese in 2025 and in other parts as well. So, it varies from place to place. But yeah, there is. They're saying that the overall
Yeah,
rate is like
really.
28.2%. So not so fast.
Really? Wow. Okay, so Canada's we shipped some of our fast foods over to Canada. That's interesting.
No,
Yeah.
Canada has all varieties of fast food. There is no doubt about that. I think
yes,
the one province that is not part of the fast food culture is definitely Quebec, because they have
Quebec,
traditional
yes,
fine French
They
uh,
like their French
food.
food.
Yeah,
French.
it's not doing that well.
And it's not French fries either.
Oh, French fries. You cut out those French fries, cut out the Big Macs, cut out the fast food, folks. Listen to me. The old Steve Rao plan. I'm 51 years old. I'm feeling like I'm 40, although at nighttime sometimes I feel like I'm 60. But here's the joke. So, we also self-diagnose ourselves all the time. So everyone becomes an epidemiologist at home. We're all freaking out about Omicron. And yesterday, I had the Smirnoff, so I woke up with a headache, fell asleep with the big book on my chest called The Chronicle of American History. Just was reading through it. And I woke up, I couldn't breathe. I was, oh my God, I got COVID, right? And I found out I had a book on my chest, I mean, but it was pretty scary for a second because I literally, slept all night with this big voluminous book right on my chest,
Wow.
and, but the thing is, we self diagnose, people get scared. You could have a cold and you think, oh my God, I'm dying of COVID. So we're all sort of a little bit paranoid, right? When it comes to that.
And then people are taking tests. I know that a friend of mine, because I actually helped them take it, was taking one of those assessment tests that you can get, and they're actually retired out of Durham, in the county of Durham. So I think they found out that they had a average score, because I think the score was somewhere around 78 or 79, and I think there might have been like around 76 or something like that. But definitely it was a test to find out about your cholesterol and whether you had had an exam and a number of other things. So I'm sure a lot of people during this time are rushing toward those assessments to figure out their health. And of course, we all know that one of the number one New Year's Eve resolutions is that folks are going to lose weight, or that they're going to get more in shape or something like that. We also all know that most of those resolutions are oftentimes broken within the first 2 days, but that is usually the resolution, that you're going to do better eating and that you're going to
You
do
got to keep,
better in exercise and all of that. It's
my
just that,
advice to people is, just keep moving and keep busy, and you just get your mind off of food. I mean, for me, like, it's funny. I'm just really busy, and I eat to live. I don't live to eat. So I'll when I'm hungry. If I'm not hungry, I don't eat. Some days I'll eat every few hours. Some days I'll go 7 hours without eating, and I'll get a little weak, which is sort of stupid. But I think people I know, they eat 4 square meals a day or 3 square meals a day, big lunch, big breakfast, big dinner. Then you don't exercise. You're going to gain weight.
Mhm.
I mean, it's I mean, but so all these resolutions, the gyms will sell their memberships. Everyone
They,
goes
they
out.
they sell all of it during this
They
time
work.
of the
They
year.
work. They work out for a week,
And then
and
they
then
quit.
and then and then
Yeah.
you know they
well, how many people actually still keep resolutions? Like I said, I don't know. I'm trying to think the last time I tried to make one, because I just realized that it wasn't happening. So in terms of keeping them, so I do try to set goals, and don't always try to do them in a yearly basis. They might be personal goals or job goals or other things, but I don't get stuck in the concept of resolutions. But I do know a lot of people that do. So Nick, Sasha, were they even really big on resolutions in Russia and Canada, or is that something that's more of a United States thing? And did you ever like
Good
follow these
question.
resolutions?
Do they have any? I think Putin has a resolution. He wants to take over Ukraine in 2022. Other than that, there's no resolution.
It's about time, to tell you the truth. If he's not going to do that, his life is worthless, because he was saying, his famous saying is that the dissolution of Soviet Union is the largest geopolitical catastrophe of 20th century. So he's there to rectify that by recreating Soviet Union, and you cannot do anything of that sort without taking over Ukraine. So obviously he's true to his goal, but I think he lost a little bit of time. He should have done it in 2014 or 15, the latest. The more time he was waiting, the Ukrainians sort of get better organized, and they're now ready to defend at all cost. But instead of taking over Ukraine, he actually completely lost Ukraine, because it will take probably another 100 years for Ukrainians become friends of Russians. It's
Yeah,
not
but
going to
why does he want Ukraine? I mean, what's the big deal of Ukraine? Do they have
The big
oil?
deal is, if his goal is to recreate Soviet Union,
Yeah,
that
that's what he has. That's exactly.
it all starts with Belarus, which is
Right.
very easy target. He can do it.
Yeah,
almost.
but Belarus doesn't care. No one wants
Okay,
it.
Yeah,
but Ukraine is something different.
Yeah,
And,
Ukraine is a nice sized decent country. But the thing is, why would he want to create something that was a failure? In other words, what's the big deal of the Soviet Union when it was obviously not a great deal for the people that were
it's
living under?
nationalism. It's ethnic pride.
It's that whole nationalism thing. And
Yeah.
speaking of
Yeah, but the
nationalism,
Ukrainians don't give a rat's rear about the Russians. So what's the nationalistic deal
It's for
here?
him. It's for his legacy. He
Oh,
wants to
his
be the guy
legacy.
that-
Oh, okay. So
Yes.
we're going to create a nuclear war because
No,
Putin
yes,
thinks
but
he's
he
a
wants to
wonderful
create.
guy.
Well, also, I think this
God.
is a good point to make. From Putin's perspective, if things are not going so well in Russia from an economic perspective, whatever, just
Wag the dog.
you get yeah, you draw on nationalism, by saying, look, I'm the one that's going out there and reacquiring it, remembering the days of the Soviet Empire, the Soviet Union, right? I don't know. I just feel like this is a strategy on his part, and he's thumbing it at the United States because he realized we're not as strong as we used to be, even though we have the strongest military, the strongest economy still. A guy like Putin is looking at America so divided and saying, look, I'm going to do this. And so while I don't know, that's just my theory. There has to be something driving this behavior.
there is
speaking
also something wonderful about Russia is that Russia never starts the war.
Yeah,
But
right.
after each war, the territory of Russia keeps growing, even if it's in defense.
Well, I mean,
that
I
is-
saw in Crimea that they were basically ethnic Russians. So the thing is, I mean, I could see the Crimea, but it looks like the Ukrainians are kind of an independent people. It's like our friends in Lithuania, Latvia, and
They're independent.
they're independent countries. Why does he want to mess with this? Why does he want to mess with them? He's got Moscow. That's big enough. They got 20 million people
Yeah,
in
it's,
Moscow.
it's,
I think
there was a paranoia that if he's not
Power.
in Crimea, then U.S. by befriending Ukraine, or maybe Ukraine will become a part of NATO or so.
Yeah.
So American will be able to build military bases in
Yeah,
Crimea.
sure. I mean, I can see that. I when I listen to negotiations, America goes, no, we're not going to compromise. We could put, missiles in Poland and Ukraine, and from his standpoint, I could see, you don't want missiles sitting in Ukraine and Poland. I mean, that makes you not feel comfortable, especially if you're Russia, who tends to have a history of people beating them up. Even though they win the war at the end of the day. I mean, Napoleon comes in, then comes the war, then comes
some of the other
Kaiser
dictators.
Wilhelm comes in, and I mean, he gets a lot of visitors that are unwelcome. Then Hitler comes in.
So have
So
some
I
of
can
those
see the
smaller
paranoid.
countries.
I mean, that's
Some of those
Yes.
smaller countries. When was the
Man,
last time you? When was the last time you heard from Latvia? The last time I heard from Latvia in terms of
I didn't put Latvia on our list, Mark. I can stick them on our list. I know
yeah,
that,
they need to be on that list too. Because the last time I heard of Latvia, and you just mentioned them, I
Well,
want to
sure-
say that
sure
there was
I was from
I want to say
Latvia.
there was a character from Taxi that was from Latvia, if I remember correctly, and everything. 'Cause I think
yeah, but these
that
are
was-
not big countries. You're talking about
no,
2 to 3
they're
million
very
people.
small countries.
Yeah.
But I can tell you a big country that's worried about a major case in in the United States that just happened, because apparently it could have an impact on them and everything, because that is the lovely area of London, because apparently there were allegations that Miss Maxwell, who just got busted.
Oh, I
and
remember. Yeah,
convicted,
she had some problems.
that she had some trips going to London, New York, and the U.S. Virgin Islands, and part of that was to have relationships with Prince Andrews. So he's, of course, denying the allegations, but there's definitely going to be some trial cases going up as well around that.
Yeah.
And folks, if
Do,
you cruise,
do you know a lot of Russians moved to London? I don't
Yeah,
get
yeah.
this. They moved to New
Well,
York. They moved to London. I don't get why they're so fascinated with that stuff.
hey,
Actually,
yeah,
last time I
living.
was in London many years ago, and I was
Yeah.
surprised how much I could hear Russian talk
Excellent.
Yeah.
language in the middle of London, in the middle of nowhere. All of a sudden, I can hear people talk Russian.
So
So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's amazing, and there were some Indians that immigrated to Russia, not as many. But I'd be curious as to whether there was Indian population. And
Indians to Russia. That got to be
yeah, there
interesting.
were some. I've heard some Indians, but not many.
Right.
Probably very slow.
Hey, Nick, did you know that there are new laws that are coming into place in 2022 because they've actually been passed and everything, and they will take place, and they include minimum wage increases, animal
Really?
protection,
A federal
police,
minimum wage increase?
police
Federal?
accountability, cutting and increasing taxes are all part of a
Okay,
new
come
series.
on, Mark. Mark, come on, Mark. This is New Year's. It's not April Fool's Day. Come on.
I
You
tell
know?
you that they said that
You know.
some of the laws, such as abortion restriction in New Hampshire, police reform measures passed in Illinois, Oregon, and right here in North Carolina will be taking effect in 2022.
Yes, maybe state, but not federal. And by the way, if you want to know something that's really weird, the federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. Never was indexed for inflation. Now, if you work in the code, everything's indexed for inflation, except the minimum wage. It just tells you what the American government think about minimum wage workers. And frankly,
I'm
for
going to get to the minimum wage. I'm going to get
they
to the
don't
minimum
think
wage
very
one.
much.
You're going to love this one. But apparently, come Saturday, California will have the nation's toughest living space standards for breeding pigs. So if you want to breed pigs there, they're going to have some tough rules there. And Maryland's going to join a number of states that will prohibit the sale of any cosmetic product if it contains ingredients that were tested on animals.
Wow, but see, California had a net loss of population of around 300,000 this year.
Yep.
You know,
But
people
here,
leave.
by the
Speaking of
way,
California, we never hear from Arnold Schwarzenegger. What's he doing?
no, we don't. But just really quickly
He's
on the
retired.
minimum wage thing, because you just said that and everything, so we'll get to that. Minimum wage, California will become the first state to require a $15 an hour minimum wage with businesses with more than 25 employees, and more than 20 other states are also increasing their minimum wage to amounts of less than $15. So a handful of states have no state level minimum wage law, meaning that they rely on the federal minimum wage, which is that low
$7.25 an hour. And then for service workers, it can be like $1 or $2 an hour.
Exactly.
I mean, if you're getting tips. So, but what gets me, it has nothing to do with the minimum wage, Mark. What gets me, it's the attitude by the congressmen and politicians, Steve excluded, that they just don't give a rat's rear about. They don't give a rat's rear about the average working person.
Yeah, we know you're a hybrid.
I'm a hybrid.
Mark, they don't care. They don't care about working people. If they did, it would have been indexed for inflation years ago.
It should have been an index for inflation.
I know, right. But let's make one thing perfectly clear. Politicians do not care about the average person in America. Okay, let's just make that clear, and then we can move on.
I agree with you on that for the most part,
except for Steve. Okay,
except for Steve Rao.
they really don't care.
In 2060,
okay? Otherwise, they would have indexed the minimum wage.
It's the road to the White House, guys. It's the road to the White House.
Yeah,
right.
I'm gonna look like this. I want to look like this when I'm 90. Woo!
Yeah, well, then you can run for president. You'll be competing against Joe Biden.
He'll still be around, and he'll be running.
This will be the last old presidents. From now, after this 4 years, the presidents will become younger.
You think so?
I don't know about that.
Has to.
Look at Joe. What about Don?
Joseph Robinette Biden versus Donald John Trump.
There could be a rematch in 2024.
Please don't wish that on us. Please don't wish that on us.
Get your Viagra and Geritol ready, guys.
Mark, I'm going to begin my closeout in 2 minutes because my headache.
We're getting ready to begin that, but just really quickly, Sasha will love this one because I know he's talked about things that he likes that have come out of like some of the political and the legal system and everything. But in North Carolina, the state that we're in and everything, now where Sasha's at, they are actually going to require recruits, and they should have been doing this a long time ago, to receive a psychological screening by a licensed psychologist to determine their suitability for the job before they can work as an officer or a deputy.
Question: Who is going to screen licensed psychologists?
Good question. Who's going to make sure the licensed psychologist? know what they're doing. Good question, Sasha.
Good question. The screening things. Actually, in my industry, in financial services, before they hire people, at least in our company, they actually do screening. They do a psychological screening, and most of them actually fail it because they don't know what it actually takes to survive in the financial services industry. So Max Coulette, who's the president of the company, goes, "You wouldn't believe these people how they would fail because they have no clue what they're getting into."
Nick, they will better spend time to listen to our financial show.
Oh yeah, right. Oh yeah, financial show is great.
I found actually lately I've listened to our shows, and I found it's very soothing and it's very focused. The conservation of capital, in fact, much more important than gains, because gains they're coming, they're going. The preservation of capital is always keeps you in a game. So if you are able to preserve, that's fantastic. It's a Bible.
Benjamin Graham. It's a Bible. Yeah, it really is. It's like MCO for investing. You know, and people don't know that until the market.
By the way, Steve was writing, by the way, one of our old friends did pop in and say hello and wish us a happy new year and all of that. So we'll just say hello from him.
Yeah.
Happy New Year. Well, I'm going to go ahead and begin my closeout early. I've got to run to another meeting.
Well, you're right at the top of the hour, so you're good.
The last jab. Well, it's sort of my final take. First of all, from our family at Pod TV to yours, we want to wish all of you a happy new year, and we wish you all the best as you begin 2022. I'll end with a quote from Amanda Gorman's poem, who spoke at Joe Biden's inauguration almost a year ago. And it said, "When day comes, how do we find light in this never-ending shade?" And she ends the poem with the quote, "If only we were brave enough to see the light. If only we were brave enough to be the light." That's my closing message today. As we continue to navigate through dark and uncertain times, we remind each other that the Force, the light, like the Jedi in the Star Wars series, exists within each and every one of us. Our light isn't dependent on the darkness around us, and we will get through this pandemic together, and we'll do it as a world, united, doing what's best for humanity. We pray for any family who's lost a loved one during this pandemic. Sasha Starr, we pray for your wife and her speedy recovery, and we pray for anyone that is suffering from any illness. We have been very proud to be with you every day on Pod TV. It's been one of the highest honors of my life to be able to share my messages with my panelists and with those around the world. So once again, from our family to yours, we'll see you next year in the year 2022. Maybe there will be sunnier skies again. And like Daddy Warbucks sang in the musical Annie Live, the sun will come out tomorrow. Hopefully we will see the sun soon. On that note, thank you all so much. May God be with each and every one of you on this New Year's Eve. See you Monday.